Cricket pitch or a mill pond, we've got our own private execution site. And that horrific site is marked by that small glass memorial and is not to be confused with the public scaffold outside on the hill. 3 Queens of England and some others were executed in this area. But before I tell you their stories, I'd like to describe a few of the buildings that surround the green. If you look right down to the far corner, you can see a large black and white Tudor building called the Queen's House. Now this dates from 1540 and is the best preserved Tudor building in the City of London, thanks mainly to the Great Fire of London destroying all its competition. That is now the home of the Constable of the Tower of London, and being the home of such a high-ranking official, it has sometimes been used to accommodate some very important prisoners. Prior to her execution in 1542, Queen Catherine Howard spent time in that house. A man called William Penn spent 8 months on the top floor for his offensive writing. He was only released on the condition that he left the country, which he did. He crossed the Atlantic and he founded the Quaker colonies of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Anyone from that neck of the woods? Whoa, look at you all, look, you must be very proud. Your founding father was a criminal.
Yeah, but we're not Australian.
We're not. That's one bonus. Don't make me alienate him. By the way, that bell we gave you was founded just 500 yards on the other side of that glass building in the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, sir. And you know what? When we gave you that bell, it was in one piece.
You still can't have it back.
You broke it. Like you did our language. It's pronounced aluminium, by the way. That's the Beecham Tower, and in there are 91 inscriptions carved into the walls by the prisoners. Some of those carvings are over 500 years old. Please go and see them. On this side of the Chapel Royal, we'll be going in there the last part of our tour. And behind you, you can see a very large building with the golden clock faces. And beneath the clock faces is an archway. And that's the entrance to the Crown Jewels and Royal Regalia. When you go in there, ladies, you're going to be looking at over 20,780 red diamonds, rubies, sapphires, emeralds, pearls, topaz, jade, amethyst, and 11 tons of gold. When you go in there, ladies, you're going to be looking at one of the most fabulous diamonds in the world, the Cullinan 1, 530.2 carats of pure white, high grade diamonds. It's in the sceptre. It'll scintillate. And as you look at that fabulous diamond, your legs are going to go weak. Your lips will start to tremble, perhaps even a tear will form in one eye. Meanwhile, the man that brought you here can be stood by your side in silence because he loves you. Can I just ask you one thing, ladies? Don't be tempted. Bring your engagement ring up and start comparing the two. All that's going to do is confirm the nagging doubt that's been burning away in the back of your head all this time, that in fact you've probably got hitched to a loser. Thanks. It's never happened before. Never wanted to happen again. Let's return our attention to the scaffold site behind me, where these 3 queens and some others died. Now the first victim in 1536 was Queen Anne Boleyn. She was tried and found guilty on 2 charges of incest and adultery. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't think she was guilty of anything apart from not providing the king with a son and heir. She's now 35 years old, she's having miscarriages, and so the king has moved his attentions on to Jane Seymour. She's also an obstacle to a treaty with Spain, but while Queen Anne lives, King Philip will never ever sign a treaty because he is the brother of Catherine of Aragon. Well, she's tried, found guilty, and she's absolutely petrified at the prospect of dying an agonising death at the hands of a clumsy axeman. And she requested that she be executed in the French style with a 2-handed sword. This was granted by the king, and the French master swordsman was sent for from St Omer near Calais. Imagine the scene on the day of the execution. Straw lay all around, mainly to absorb the blood, but also to hide the sword, which was wrapped in some sacks beneath the straw. The Queen was on her knees with her head bowed in prayer, and the executioner stood directly behind her. And when he thought the time was right, he very quietly went down on one knee, pulled out that sword and held it in readiness above Queen Anne. And then inexplicably he shouted, "Bring me my sword!" This startled Anne in such a way that she looked up. At that point he smote her head from her body, one quick clean strike. In fact, it was so precise, even the Queen herself did not know it had occurred, because as the executioner picked up that head to show the 1,000 who had assembled, they as one gasped. They as one gasp. That wasn't as one, was it, really? Let's try that again. They as one gasp. They could see her eyes still fixing and focusing on people in the crowd. Then they gasped again. They could see her lips were still moving in silent prayer. Up to 25 seconds it was reported. Now the head and the body were placed into an elm arrow box, taken into the chapel and buried beneath the altar. And that's where she is to this day, and I will point out that spot in the last part of our tour. 5 years passed, and the next victim was to be King Henry VIII's own auntie, Margaret Pole. She was the Viscountess of Salisbury, the last of the Plantagenet princesses, and most importantly of all, she had done absolutely nothing wrong. All she had done was have a boy who'd grown up to be a cardinal, Cardinal Reginald Pole, and he was going around Europe drumming up support for the Pilgrimage of Grace, a rebellion in the north. Now, as the king can't punish the son, he decides to punish the mother instead. But that proud old lady refused to put her neck on the block. She said, "That's for traitors, I'm not a traitor." And she jumped off the scaffold and ran down towards the bloody tower. The executioner took off after her. When he caught up with her, he hacked her to pieces down there. A truly horrific end to a 67-year-old lady. Within a year, the axe was to fall again twice in the same day, this time on the pretty young neck of Queen Catherine Howard and her lady-in-waiting, Jane Boleyn, the Viscountess of Rochford. And Queen Catherine didn't want to make the same mistake as Queen Anne, so she tried really hard to have a baby. Really, really hard. Not necessarily with the king, but she was definitely trying. She was accused of having a number of affairs, but it was the one with Thomas Culpeper that would be her undoing. She is reported to have said from the scaffold site, "Today I stand before you, the Queen of England, but I would much rather be the wife and lover of the only man I truly loved, Master Thomas Culpeper." She probably shouldn't have said that. Thomas Culpeper certainly thought so. He was at the back like this. Jane Boleyn was Anne Boleyn's sister-in-law. She was executed within an hour of Queen Catherine. Her crime, not telling the king of her mistress's liaison. Now, the last queen to die here was Lady Jane Grey. I'm going to tell you that story in the chapel because it's just better in there. So as we're going into the chapel, a place of Christian worship, gentlemen, if you're wearing a hat or a cap, please remove it as a sign of respect. Also, now is the time to turn off your cameras and your phones and anything else that you